Hello, Booktube.
Oh, dear God, Booktube.
We thought we'd make a video. He told me we had to wait because we didn't want to interrupt Noah's live stream. Wasn't that fun?
It was actually really good.
Noah, and everyone who reads it must converse, does a live
excellent.
stream every Friday night. And it is the peak of Booktube community.
Yeah. And it had so many people in the chat that I really, really like.
Plus a lot of losers.
I'm sure everybody can identify two of them, right?
That Hannah's Books person.
Oh.
What's she hiding under those scarves anyway? It's
See
just a
those
great
shelves?
group. Because Noah is talking about these books, we were commenting on it, that he is exploring these books. He's honestly exploring the world of literature. That is so wonderful to see. And everybody in the comments they were agreeing or disagreeing.
There was no Louis L'Amour.
There was no Louis L'Amour. No. And there was no Erasmus either. I don't know where you find Erasmus in northern Georgia.
Where did
you told me that I took my dog, my little Frida, out to pee in the rain at exactly the moment when Noah mentioned Big Canoe in northern Georgia.
Yeah, which he knows. I'm sure he knows all about it, right? And I didn't get to the back door to lock him out.
No.
Like, yeah. No, that was fun. That was a good time. I've missed the last few Fridays, but I've been pretty religious about watching them. The comments. When you're doing a live stream like Noah did, and you're trying to have a conversation and deal with a conversation that's going on the screen, that's not easy even when you have help. It's hard to time your conversation.
Unless you just concentrate on my comments. Then it's easy. Just comment on my comments. And nobody else's.
YouTube is concentrating on your comments. The rest of us don't care.
It was great though because we always talk about the Booktube community and how great an aspect that is. And Noah's live streams are an example of that community happening in real time. Which is amazing. But he insisted that we wait. I wanted to share our profundities with you right away. But he insisted that we wait.
So that I could be entertained.
To talk about Friday reads. What are you reading at the moment?
I'm finishing the last couple chapters of Patrick O'Brian.
Because we're doing the Mauritius Command. We're going to be talking about the Mauritius Command. I think, do we decide I'm going to do a video, you're going to do a video, and then we're going to do one together?
Right. And then...
and we'll just try to make the video together, not just see stories. Just an endless supply. Yeah, the book was good, but that was this time I went through the Panama Canal. Although... Probably a lot of people will say they'd like to hear those.
Yeah.
Over talking about some boring book in a series.
I love that book. I've already... I'm not going to talk about it because I've actually got so many things in that book. So what, it's the fourth?
It's the fourth book in the series.
And it's already going in...
book?
It's not a weak book.
Some people say it's a weak book. I can't imagine.
It matters what you're looking for, I guess. But for me, it's not, and I don't want to talk about it too much. But it's going in a different direction than I thought it would go, and I actually end up.
Is this your first time reading it?
First time on Mauritius Command. So when when I first saw Patrick O'Brian, there wasn't a lot of these neat sets around.
No.
And I'm sure the same is true for you. Norton's the one who really took off with that.
They decided to go all in on him, and it paid off in a big way.
For everybody.
But you also have those beautiful folios.
Yeah, and I also have an electronic version that I was reading when I had to bring my son up to the high school. So I'd sit in the parking lot while he's a remote student, so he's doing testing. And that was a really good experience. I enjoyed doing it that way. So yeah, there's no limit on how you can read Patrick O'Brian. I mean, he's out there everywhere because it's a cash cow, obviously. But
what else?
I've been...
what else are you dabbling in?
I've been reading a little bit. I just read that small Mary Beard volume on women.
Women in Power?
Yeah, Women in Power. That was really a slim volume, but the more I think about it, the more it works on me.
Yeah, she's a deep thinker.
But I don't think I picked that. I knew that because I've read her other stuff, but I think that book... It came across. She was a little more subtle than I thought she would be, and I thought at first it wasn't. So it's,
You had you mentioned I think that you had a rough week for reading.
Oh my gosh!
Classic irony that the library director has a rough week for reading because the library starts demanding more time.
Well, it's the end of the budget year. And you're going into the new budget year, and you've got to spend your money, and you've got to spend it the best you can. And what changes, we're a 120-year-old building, I think. And which around here means we're new. But air. The air you breathe in a library is all of a sudden one of the most important things there is, right? Because
of the pandemic, yeah.
So,
but you mentioned to me that your library never closed.
No, we had to close for a couple of weeks.
There are a lot of you out there in a lot of countries that are envious of that. Your library's closed.
We had rules and we never had a problem. But the air handling in the building is actually, when you start thinking about it, the newer parts of the building have air pumps, so they recycle air. The
newer parts of the building.
But the older parts of the building, you can imagine the furnace looks like something out of like an old Jules Verne movie. Harry Harryhausen or whatever his name was designed my furnace. Yeah. So that can't be healthy.
No, it can't be healthy.
No.
But it doesn't matter, because all of Booktube is still laughing at the fact that anybody would disobey a rule in a library run by Marcus. It's no surprise to anybody that the rules were followed. But I'm a freak. I don't have a job like Mark does. Although I'm not noticed, unlike my own channel, I'm not following up by saying I'm not even wearing pants, because there's some sort of restrictive house rule here. I am wearing pants. But
it's out of pity.
When we said that we were going to read HMS, the Mauritius Command, I read it that day, and I think you just probably rolled your eyes, because he can't do that.
No.
He's got a million things on his plate. I read it that day, and I just loved it. Oh my God. I love those books more every time I read them. I was so eager to go on to Desolation Island. Because as much as I just bridle at people saying that Mauritius Command is a weak novel, Desolation Island is better. I mean, it's almost every part of it that's better.
If I have no pretension to be a writer. I do it for fun once in a while. I'd love Mauritius Command to be my greatest novel, because then it would be way better than anything I could ever do. So I'm entertained, and there's I don't want to talk about it we'll do
a video together on our responses on the subject. But so that, and
I've been reading
any science fiction.
I did just. I'm actually, because of Noah. Actually, I'm on the years ago in 1980. I think I did a cruise.
1980.
I did a cruise. Yeah. Noah wasn't around.
No. He said a spike through both our hearts on his live stream, because he said 1982, like he was talking about when the Egyptians built the pyramids.
I was on a cruise from I think from Boston to probably Naples, Italy.
I spent most of 1982 in the Bay of Bengal. So and I already had all my degrees. So it was a spike through the heart when Noah said, 19... Like, he said it like he was confused that books were printed that long ago.
So we had a fire control room on the ship. So they're air conditioned, because they were early computers and they ran all the weapons. And we had a cadet cruise. I think it was 80, might have been 82. We had a cadet cruise, and I would go down with the fire control guys, because I was a bosun on the deck. But I would go down with the fire control guys, because the cadet, we ran them pretty rough. And I would go down to fire control. We'd spend 12 hours playing Dungeons and Dragons. Right? And you were doing it by hand, everything by hand. And the fire control guys were the biggest nerds on the planet. They're all computer guys before computers are really a big deal.
When computers were the sole province of nerds.
Oh, yeah. There was nobody, The captain come down, I want you. What are we doing?
I remember those early days of Dungeons and Dragons. I was explicitly forbidden the minute one of my beagles ate one of those 20-sided because those are expensive.
The first time you saw one, did you just look at them like there was something wrong with them?
I knew that I would never understand how it works, but I love the world building. I love those aspects of it.
A great dungeon master mattered.
Yeah, and a great dungeon master would make it non-mathematical.
I was down there for 2 months.
Oh my God.
2 months of pure immersion.
Do you remember the campaign?
They made it up.
Do you remember the details?
Oh yeah, a lot of them. And we didn't have anything else. And I remember when those Dragonlance novels first came out. Remember those?
Yes.
That was Weiss and Tracy Hickman,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So
Was that
Noah
right?
mentioned those, and then I'm down at the thrift store and I found the first two in old paperbacks with the old cover art. Not the big nice wife. My wife did. My wife found them. Not
He
me.
didn't find them.
No, I didn't.
She
find
did.
them. Yeah, but
A phenomenon I
I've been.
would have scoffed at, but I have just recently
Oh,
been
no,
to a
she's
thrift
good.
store where she had an armload of books before I could
Yeah.
even turn around.
So I've read.
It makes it very
Almost
hard
all
to
the first
maintain a male ego when she's around. It's very hard to do. We're going to manage, but,
Yeah.
but it's hard to do.
Yeah, so I'm almost done with one of those. I sidetracked in one of them.
Are they any good? I confess
What
I've
do you
never
mean
read
good?
the Weiss and Hickman.
They're not literature on this level, but they're enjoyable.
How do they compare to, like, Dragonlance?
No, they are Dragonlance.
Oh.
They are the first
What
two
am I thinking
Dragonlance.
of then? Weren't there Dungeons and Dragons novels as well?
Oh, probably later. Jijax or whatever.
All I'm thinking
Yeah.
of is the Monster Manual and the
Yeah,
Player's Manual
yeah.
and all that sort of
Well,
stuff.
those
I read
old
those
ones, like
things.
that-
I had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to play.
My
dogs
kids
weren't allowed
play.
anywhere near the board, so I got to read the books.
My kids play up on, but they have actually a computer interface they can use for some of it.
Yeah, okay, so it is now all electronic.
Well,
Nobody
they
uses-
play with their friends and they're in different places, and they do create stuff and
But
they roll
the board
dice.
games are still popular, right?
When we did it, there was no board. It was
Comic
just
stores
paper.
lease out space for board
Right,
game
and they do.
players.
There's a place in the town next to us that still does that. They have board games, but most of the Dungeons and Dragons didn't involve a board.
We watched. We rewatched. It was a rewatch for you. It was the first time for me. Michael K. Vaughan just hit
He's
100
fantastic.
videos. I made my usual wisecrack remarks about reaching 100 videos since I did 100 videos today. But he in part 2 of that video, he was opening boxes of vintage science fiction fantasy, and both of us were just going, oh, we were just going nuts because so many of that stuff, so much of that stuff was recognizable.
A lot was recognizable, and what was really bad is ones that weren't, because there was a couple really bad ones in there.
But your eyes perked up at
the
Forever
Highland
War,
stuff he
same
pulled
as I
out.
did. Joe
Yeah.
Haldeman.
Yeah, Haldeman.
And Haldeman's completely gone now, right? He's completely.
No, I think you can still find Haldeman. I think I've seen him in print recently.
I would love that. All My Sins Remembered is a terrific book. It doesn't matter that the science is outdated.
No, I mean,
And even the Forever War. The Forever War was not one of my favorite of his
I
books.
liked
but,
it. Yeah.
but that was quite the thing to see. Although we both commented on the fact that Michael K. Vaughan is a lot more forgiving of the shape these books are in.
Yeah, I
I
would.
mean, why would you get a 60-year-old
Well, I think he's
mass market?
randomly throwing it out and taking a chance.
Right,
He's
right.
having fun.
Then that's what you do,
He's doing
right?
it
If
on
you get an
purpose.
eBay lot, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're taking a chance for $20.
I mean, I thought some of the Heinleins he pulled out of there were pretty good. And then, wasn't there E. Doc Smith he got right at the end
Just
there?
one.
Yeah, one.
Yep.
That was really good.
Yep.
Skylark, one of them.
And you cracked up with the sequel to Buck Rogers.
Yeah, it was like, oh my
Because
God,
it-
that's gonna
I
be
think you
bad.
cracked up mainly because it had classic late 70s
Yeah.
artwork on the cover.
That's a good channel. He's a good channel, and I guess he said a buddy of his we have not watched yet just started a Booktube channel. So
Yeah.
I like it when they encourage.
If we remember, put a link to his channel and to Noah's channel and to his buddy's channel.
Yeah.
Just in.
Justin.
In. So his name
Something
is
like
Justin.
that. Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm looking
Of
forward
course,
to
that's a
it.
euphemism. It's going to be his dad that remembers, not either one of us. It's going to be his dad that puts the links in. And I say his dad because, of course, I have a dad of my own.
Yes.
But she's 1.0. She's the original issue. She's not as good at Deb. I can't quit.
You have a wonderful dad.
I guess I do.
A long-suffering dad. Yeah. Yeah. No, so I like seeing that. I don't get to watch as much BookTube in the last few weeks as I usually do.
Now, your account of your last few weeks makes him sound awful. I wonder how
Oh,
you
no,
hit the pillow at night.
Yeah, but I like it, so it's fun.
I watch tons of you all. I watch you all the time. I have very little in the way of things to do. Although one of the things that I have to do is put together the Big Canoe News' book section, and I missed the one mention of Big Canoe, Georgia on Noah's live stream because I was outside.
Yeah, he
trying to
knows
get-
where it is. Yeah. The other thing I've been watching, Gunwich? He's one of my favorite.
We'll leave a link to him as well.
Yeah,
He's
Gunwich is a great
channel.
guy. And he's down in Texas. He does. I watch him do some grilling because they love it down there, and we love it here. And what's it called? He turned me on to one called Meat Church, and where they do the real grilling. And,
The YouTube channel?
yeah,
Devoted to grilling.
and there's lots of them, but this
Is there
guy
really?
comes recommended because Gunwich told me about it, and I've been watching it, learning a lot. And of course, it's always presentation, right? You can do anything on YouTube if you present it right or in an entertaining way, and
So
make
I've
it
heard.
so you can follow it, right? You got to be able to follow it. If somebody's showing you something you've never done before, it's nice if you can actually follow the steps. So I've been watching a little bit of that. We had some fun with it.
Years ago, didn't you show me a channel about somebody who was working on small boats?
Oh yeah,
And
I do
think
that
I
all the
noticed.
time.
I forget the channel name, but I noticed his presentation was really good.
Right.
You could follow what he was saying.
Right, and if you get an unpractical, what's his name? Burns, I think is his name. Is a British guy who's over in France who does. He's on a small little boat, and that's all he does. And you just know he's an expert, but he can talk to you. He doesn't bury you in jargon. He'll say what it is and then get you through it. But that's what you do with the Patrick O'Brien books, right? I had to tell somebody today
Yes.
that a lady that came in, she looked at it, she all of a sudden, you could tell she was sort of fascinated by the idea. She's reading the blurb, she's looking at what it is, saying, whoa, wait a minute, what is this? I said, you got to get in the first book. Give it a chance.
He needs a lady who came into his library, is what he's saying, not in here into the house.
All right, people just show up randomly in my house and say,
And
hey,
if you
what
go
do I
into his
read?
library, the library director is probably going to want to bend your ear about books. That doesn't happen in many libraries. So.
2.5 hours we sat there and saw the book with the whole staff and
But that
and the
is the
patron.
problem with Patrick O'Brien. You know, as much as I love him, that is a problem. He dumps you into the deep end of the pool.
What else are you going to do?
Well, Forster doesn't. In
Because he
Cornwall,
doesn't
no.
really get into it, does he?
He doesn't really get into it.
You could be
Instead,
on a
right,
skimmer
he
going point A to
neutrals
point.
it
Yeah,
for you,
that's
so
not a
that
good
you don't have to
idea.
worry about it.
So are you
A
getting
whole
you're not
generation
world
fell in
building?
love with those books.
I love them,
But
you're not doing the
Patrick
same thing.
O'Brien clearly had those books in mind when he decided, I'm going to do something completely different. I'm not going to have these characters explain things they wouldn't explain.
But what
So
does
they
Dewey
don't.
Lambden do?
Yeah, he does the Forster way, only funny.
But
only
he's
great.
actually a really good sailor.
Yeah, he's a really good nautical guy. But he decided obviously these have to be conscious.
You have to make a
decisions.
decision.
And whereas somebody like Dudley Pope decided to take more of a Patrick O'Brien approach, where you
But
need
Dudley
to know
Pope
what,
is like a nerd for maritime stuff, right?
yeah. Well,
That's his world. Or
that's the thing that
Woodman.
worries me about Patrick O'Brien is that he gives off the air that only nerds can approach him, and that's not true. You don't need to know 18th century nautical lore to like his books. You just need to give it time.
But couldn't you say the same thing about Wolf Hall?
Well,
She drops you in the middle of
That's
the
my
world,
own Friday reads. That's
and
one
you
of my
better,
Friday. I've been,
you better swim. She doesn't coddle you.
she doesn't coddle you, right?
Right.
But she does use a narrative device that's at least partially, because her Thomas Cromwell is a nobody from Putney. He's not part of this aristocratic world. He enters
And that gives
world.
her an
Right,
entree.
it gives her a way.
Well,
to-
that's what Mandarin is. Every
Yeah, I
time
guess
you
that's true.
have a
Yeah,
nautical
that's
thing you
true.
have to explain.
in the
Mandarin's
Patrick
perfect.
O'Brien novel, Stephen Maturin is a total landlubber. What Patrick O'Brien
He had to
characters
have
would call
him.
a grass-combing swab. He doesn't know anything at all.
But that
about
works,
nautical.
right?
It works, except that
We get
It-
caught up in Mandarin
works-
because he's so fascinating.
right, and also we're told in those first 3 novels how brilliant he is, and yet in novel 10 he still can't tell anything about any of the ships. He still has to have all of that stuff explained to him because the reader needs it explained. Whereas he,
Well, no,
as-
because he's also probably the most. He's a spy, and he picks up on super detail, and then he trips over a blade of grass and almost kills himself. He's like the most. He's that professor everybody saw at college. You may not have had him, but you sort of avoided him on the quad because you knew he was going to drown in the puddle on the way to class.
in the
He's that
Mauritius
guy.
Calamity, he almost drowns twice.
Oh no, he gets
Absolutely
badly
routine
injured.
things
Yeah.
that he should be able to do by now.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with Irishmen?
Oh, remember in Sharp, what was it, Patrick the Irishman? That's the one Irishman I don't want to run into.
Irish characters are always trouble, both in fiction and on Booktube.
Yeah.
Cheers to Jason Harrigan, whatever channel name he has now. I don't know. He keeps saying he's had more resurrections than Jesus.
Jason, you wink if you need help.
Yes. Yes. Way too many of you have been pursuing this. Is Mark being held captive?
Yeah.
He's just opened his doors to me and the Bean forever. So
Forever in Vermont is measured in caliber.
Yes, because they're all armed here. I don't know how much you know about the United States. Those of you who've been leaving well-intentioned comments saying, "Oh, Steve and Frida, enjoy your weekend in Vermont." Yeah.
Thank you for your support.
Yes, but nevertheless, we're buried in here and we're not going anywhere. But I have been reading Wolf Hall for Friday Reads. I've been reading it very slow. I got a Canadian trade paperback that I love. Those of you who are in Canada, I have now mentioned on my channel several times that I want Bring Up the Bodies and The Mirror and the Light in Canadian trade paperbacks. And yet, in all this time, no Canadian copies have appeared on my doorstep, even though I am a sexy influencer.
It's 2.5 hour drive that way. You can just go do it.
You'd like that, wouldn't you? Yeah. Sticking right here. Yeah, nice try. I've been reading it very slowly. I've been going through it line by line, paragraph by paragraph, and really enjoying it. And I don't want any Weisenheimer comments about how, well, if you're a book critic, don't you read everything with attention, or shouldn't you? Okay? And I also just saw what the new American trade paperback set looks like, and it's gorgeous. Gorgeous. They redid it all. They redid all three of them as a matching set in trade paperbacks in America. American trade paperbacks are never gorgeous. But I guess The Mirror and the Light, the American hardcover of that, was so ostentatiously ugly that I guess maybe they heard feedback or whatever. I don't know. All the rest of it has been General Meade. I need to raid his Civil War library. He has a collection of Civil War.
You know where you should be for that. Somewhere in the
cornfields of Iowa. Yes, Bill Rutenberg probably has 20.
He has 10,000 times more.
See, that's the thing. That's the thing. When you're a book reviewer, you flit from subject to subject to subject, but you don't. I don't really build a deep bench in my own library, except, particularly enough, books about book reviewing.
I would say that most of the Civil War books here, not all of them, but either you gave me or we found together.
Oh, really? So I'll be encountering familiar books.
Well, you'll know all the books. There's not going to be a book up there you don't know. And
the Civil War.
The Civil War is a little new for me. I like the Revolution.
The second floor is where the cats live here, and Frida likes to be with me. And
they just had a battle today.
Yes, there's an uneasy daytime between Frida and the cats. They're bigger than she is.
Yeah,
but she doesn't like to back down, and neither do they. They live here. It's their house, or at least it was.
He was telling me where to move my furniture in the living room.
Yes. So those of you who watch Mark's channel, if you notice that he seems a little more drunk, or maybe a little more desperate, maybe that 1,000-mile stare in his eyes, you'll now know why. And all of his Instagram attempts to pawn me off on other people.
I was actually on Voxer.
He was on Voxer and Instagram trying to get Tom at LA Books to take me off his hands.
Yeah. Harrigan says the numbers changed. Tom in LA Book is the most polite person that ever lived. And he still said no. I mean, he said it more polite than in human. Are you out of your mind? I've never heard said.
Use some sort of expletive out of Dante, didn't
Yeah, I believe so. Beatrice? Yeah, no.
But aside from that, it's all work. I need to understand Meade. I have the standard reaction to him, that he was a failure at Gettysburg because he didn't destroy Robert E. Lee. He had absolutely the chance to do it, and he didn't do it.
Now, I mean, McPherson says that's not true.
Right, and so does Peg at the History Shelf, to use a higher expert.
No,
so she also defends
McPherson just says, Peg's it? Oh, I'm okay. And I'm not kidding. I'm still bitter with her because she has all of the naval history that I want. The multi-volume set. We know what it is, Peg, don't we?
And she has a bigger miniature schnauzer than I do. So she's showing us all up.
What's a giant miniature schnauzer look like?
Well, the full-size schnauzers are as big as German Shepherds. And
Are they?
They're usually pure black.
Are they?
And they are known for temperament problems. Whereas the miniature schnauzers are little angels. They are delightful.
They're cat food.
Hoping that I can avoid that.
Yeah.
Today was bad because Frida is slowly gaining confidence to walk around here without me being with her. And one route she mastered first was to go from the room that we are going to occupy until we're old and gray, straight through here to the couch and jump up on the couch. And today she jumped up on the couch without checking ahead of time there was a cat already on the couch. And World War III erupted. And I wasn't around for it. I swear.
And the cat looked really confident.
Yeah.
Angry,
The bean makes a good noise, but she's not an aggressive animal at all. Oh, my poor baby.
They'll be fine. If not, you can always get another dog.
And in terms of Friday reads, Noah's live stream, on his live stream, he showed that he just finished The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula Le Guin. I
What a great thing to read.
I want to read it again now. I'm sure I have an ebook of it.
Well, I got a bunch of hers up.
It's the thing, that's the danger of Booktube. Is that somebody will hold up a book that I haven't read in 30 years and say, this was great. And I all of a sudden want to read it again. And the Lathe of Heaven is my favorite book by her.
I remember reading her when I was really fairly young. I was in my late teens. And I got into those that run. Who was it that published her in paperback? I don't remember. But you remember the old covers with like the ice, you know what I mean? And I ran into
Noah's
her.
cover was prettier.
Oh yeah, that was
prettier,
much.
That iconic mass market paperback.
Right, but that's why I read her, and you would find her, and you knew the talent level.
Oh yeah, and you knew that it was eons past the people that you were reading.
And then she got into that horrible controversy. Was it the Norton Anthology of Science Fiction that infuriated people with her choices? Because she didn't do the space opera.
You're right.
That?
Yes. Oh my God.
And that was before she was already should have been iconic, but she wasn't.
But no one could argue with her. Even then, no one could argue with her.
Well, they did.
That was a controversy.
You had the worst people. Yeah. And
that would have been burned in my memory. That
probably would be a nice anthology to find again. I haven't seen one in years.
That's right. I forgot.
And I think Norton took a great chance there, and they made the right choice to do it, which they've done by that in the past.
They stuck by their editor. But she made a withering comment once that controversy took off.
Well, she did a beautiful job at that Penn Awards. Remember when she went?
Did she make an offhand comment about how I don't want to make another Dawn Waldheim anthology? I thought she specifically aimed at Barb at male reviewers.
Yeah, but I don't think she would have randomly. She was pretty.
She wouldn't
classy.
have named a person.
Yeah,
right? She wouldn't have named an individual person. But it seemed to me that she was railing at the fact that, Terry Carr or.
I don't think she disliked those people. She just said there's more than one way to do things.
Right. Yeah.
And when you think about when I was that age, before 1982,
I know, 1982.
Yeah. The thing that we saw was really two of the great writers. One who I don't think gets the recognition she deserved. She was a popular writer. There's nothing wrong with that in my book. So you had Anne McCaffrey, who probably brought in more money than 90% of the big names.
Literally enough money to buy herself an island.
Yeah. And then you had probably the greatest practitioner of the art as an art in Ursula Le Guin. You had other great people that don't get what they should, obviously, and there's some of them are guys. I mean, is Theodore Sturgeon sort of slipping away?
Is he?
Yeah.
Nobody reads him anymore.
Yeah, Robert Silverberg. Actually, I think Noah read one of the Theodore Sturgeon books. And I admire him for that. But and you see Silverberg, who's still he'd have to be the grand old man now, I think.
There can't be anybody older.
No.
No, there can't be anybody.
And who knows more? What happened at those parties at Heinlein's house, right? But, I mean, with
Ursula Le Guin, it was, you're reading along and you're reading along and you're reading along, and then she does a science fiction idea novel, and suddenly it's, okay, so this is how this can be done. And then you're reading along and you're reading along and you're reading along, and then she does, so you boys are writing epic fantasy trilogies? How about if I do that? And then you read that and you think, okay, all right, so this is what it could be.
Because she has a strong, obviously her father's a legend as an anthropologist, and her mother she did that Ishi, the tribe.
The last of his tribe.
Yeah. So she had parents that were very unique. Her father was considered one of the founding members of anthropology in the United States.
Not a lot of people know that.
Yeah, Kroeber, he was a legend. But, so she had, and then she had that West Coast upbringing around Stanford and all those places. She was very unique. She's a very weird combination of, I guess everybody is, right? Of the influences everywhere.
Not me.
I mean, your mother wrote Ishi, so how do you look at science fiction? And Contact.
Because that is a science fiction novel. Really, it is.
It's Contact with an alien race. It just happens to be
yes,
modern American.
It happens to be modern American.
Yeah, and I mean, and the reality is very hard because it doesn't work out well. You know what I mean? So she saw this stuff firsthand. She was pretty fascinating. I mean, and I love the fact that Library of America has brought all their stuff up and continues.
Yeah, that means there's a fan there somewhere, right? Because there were plenty of people they could have gone to. They went to her instead. There's a fan.
I think they made a good decision. I've seen them make bad decisions, I think.
I think the same fan must be responsible for them doing Octavia Butler.
That's a wise decision.
It is a wise decision. And it's also an unusual one, right?
It is an unusual
I mean, Octavia Butler is in the Library of America, but Isaac Asimov is not.
And Isaac Asimov should be for different reasons. I mean, he's that part of American literary history. He's part of our cultural conversation,
yeah.
Right?
And
Frank Herbert should be.
He elevated the genre.
He did.
Not with his literary talent, but nevertheless, he elevated after Asimov, it was possible to talk about science fiction in a New York literary gathering. It was possible to say, I'm reading the new science fiction novel and not have people laugh. That was Asimov who did that. Yeah. It wasn't Heinlein, it wasn't Bradbury, it was Asimov who did that. It wasn't Frank Herbert.
Who was better than
10 times better a writer than Asimov. Yeah. It was Asimov who did that. It was Asimov who, just by sheer dint of writing 100 books a year, made people say, okay, science fiction. And even science papers now, non-fiction science, talks about the laws of robotics. So
well,
that is
you saw like when Will Smith was in the movie
I, Robot.
You saw there are story elements there. They could be massively mishandled by Asimov sometimes. And of all the big giants at that time, when you and I were younger, it was Heinlein, Clark, Asimov, and then everybody else. Bradbury was a different.
Yeah, he was
character.
Closer to.
He was a different
fantasy
character.
or not even that, oral tradition.
He was a really odd duck. But those three
I know Alfred Bester. Those of you who know your Simpsons. where I don't have to go to the ABCs of science fiction. Asimov, Bester, and Clark. What about Bradbury? I'm aware of his work. It's a classic science fiction song.
But see, you would grow up with hard science fiction like I did, and then you would go read, Dandelion Wine, and you're like, what?
I still don't know what to make of that book.
Right.
Even after all this time, I still don't know what to make of Dandelion Wine. It kills me to think, is Dandelion Wine out of print?
No, Bradbury's out of print. It's in print.
Oh.
I've got fairly new copies of all of them over there.
R is for Rocket is in print.
Yeah, it's combined with, help me out, S is for Space? It's
in a normal mainstream publisher.
Yeah. Bradbury's a money pit.
I thought he was unknown. That's great.
That's good.
That's good.
Do you remember he wrote that book? What was it? One he did in Ireland about working with John Huston.
Yes. Greenland and Blue Sea, or
something like that, where they worked on Moby Dick.
He tells the story about how Gregory Peck was lashed to the rubber whale and was almost washed out to sea. They almost lost Gregory Peck doing that scene. The scene where Ahab is getting his revenge at last, and thanks to the vagaries of pop culture, people only know that scene from Khan in Star Trek II. From hell's heart, I stab at thee.
Yeah.
For hate's sake, I spit
my last how breath popular at thee. Culture works.
For those of you who don't know, the white whale in that scene is not Jim Kirk. it's Moby Dick. For hate's sake, I spit my last
What
breath
a great job he did on that, though. Delivering that?
He did a great job, yes, but I thought I've lost track of how many young people
but in that
back
Bradbury,
in the 80s, in the 1980s.
Remember that?
I lost track of how many people I said, boy, that was great writing. And I said, no, that was Melville. That wasn't great writing of Star Trek.
Number one, you should have known the minute you started doing it. If you saw it, you looked at me and said, well, that's Shakespeare, I would have at least forgiven you, right?
But what about Asimov's nonfiction writing on stuff like your bailiwick, like architecture? Or anthropology.
Remember the Shakespeare book and the Bible book?
Were those any good? I haven't read a lot of his nonfiction. Was it? Where's
a lot of his stuff? Like he did. What was it?
I mean, did you find him competent in nonfiction?
I thought he was in some ways, but remember his big basic book of science, that big giant.
Yeah, I didn't read it.
I did read it.
His book on Shakespeare and kind of liked it.
Yeah, I did too. He was good at that. I don't know how they were put together though. His essays on science were really good because they're always collected later. Remember, a lot of those were in Fantasy and Science Fiction or one of the magazines. And then...
He's a great explainer.
He was good at that. He was a good teacher. But his big book of science... I've actually got a copy of one of the older ones. Well, what are you going to do? Can you read the astronomy now? It's not wrong.
No,
it's
not
just
wrong.
limited.
It's just grade school.
Yeah, because it's no...
My
the
criticism
world
of
is
him would be that he was a great explainer when in his nonfiction books, and my criticism of him would be that he's still explaining even in his fiction. And that's
where
why...
he came out sad? With that Alan Navala Lee? Astounding.
Oh, yeah. Astounding.
He was... Everybody was so... You would expect... Asimov to be the least likable character. All of a sudden, he looks good.
Yeah, he looked good by comparison.
And then his death was so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very pitiful. Soon.
A long time from now.
No,
no, not soon. A long time from now.
Yeah.
And well, since we're mentioning Alec Navala Lee, we should just by reflex mention that Matt at Paperback Junkie did a great interview.
Oh my God, that's one of the best interviews ever done on
We'll
Booktube.
just have to trust your dad to get all these links as we're raging all over creation.
I wish Matt would do more of that. He was really good.
Yeah, he's really good at it.
Yeah. And that was a good book. It was really not fun for me to read, to realize everybody I looked up to
but
as a name, because I didn't know anything about him in reality.
But the neat thing about it is that the author, Alec Navala Lee, was not trying to tear anybody down.
Oh, no, he's immensely fair.
This wasn't a hit job.
They did it to themselves.
They did it to themselves, exactly.
Yeah.
But now I want to read The Lathe of Heaven again. As part of my Friday reads, I want to see if I have an ebook of it and read it again, because that is such a great book. Have you ever read it?
No,
read The Lathe of Heaven?
Yeah, I've read all of them.
I
I haven't read all of them because I haven't read all the short stories.
Incredibly early BBC production of The Lathe of Heaven, starring an incredibly young Bruce Dern. You think of him as an old man now, but he was incredibly young.
They think of anything after 1980 as an old man.
No, that's right. Yes.
Thank you,
1982. And yet, with the BBC, they're so good at using a shoestring budget to make things look great. And they did.
I've seen some BBC things where I'm going, I see a shoestring.
Well, yes. Doctor Who. We don't want to mention we don't want to mention it's a special.
They killed it for me because everybody now is into Doctor Who. Well, when I watched Doctor Who, I would look at it and say, this is embarrassing.
Yes, it was embarrassing. Unless you concentrated on the writing and the energy.
Well, no, that's fair, which you can try to do when you're older. But I was a teenager, and I'm like, oh my gosh, really?
I wasn't even born.
Neither was Noah.
I hope you mean Noah and everybody who reads it must converse.
No, I'm not that guy with the boat.
No. But no, in that old BBC show, George, the main character in Lathe of Heaven, George Orr, his dreams change reality. And he knows it. And he is tormented by it. And so he goes to a psychiatrist. And
that helps.
The psychiatrist it turns out, if you're right next to him and his dream changes reality, you're going to know it. You're not going to be like everybody else in the world who doesn't know it. And his psychiatrist tells him, okay, that picture on my wall, imagine it as something else. And it changes. And suddenly the psychiatrist says, I have the greatest weapon ever invented. And says, I want to wipe out all warfare on Earth. And of course the solution, as any of you know from Aladdin's lamp, is all warfare is wiped out because aliens. And in the miniseries, George Orr is at an aquarium noticing a sea turtle. And the producers just make the aliens into tall, sentient sea turtles. It's so simple. Anyway, I'm probably going to read that for Friday.
Are you?
Yeah, probably I am. Well, I'm going to stick with Wolf Hall and General Meade until it's Carter's time. Jimmy Carter's coming right now. Kai Bird's new book, The Outlier, about Jimmy Carter's presidency. I haven't touched it. I did not get an advance copy. The subtitle is The Unfinished Presidency of Jimmy Carter. That tends to make me think he's a true believer, and I'm going to be dealing with somebody who...
I like or dislike him. It's just that I just wouldn't sit down and read it.
There's no way you can call his presidency unfinished. So I don't know. I'll see how it goes. I'll see how it goes. I'm getting tempted with Friday Reads Left, Right, and Center because we're getting all these books.
Right. I didn't think we did it as great today.
You didn't.
No, I didn't see much I liked.
He went to his usual haunts, and the worst part, worse than usually when we go to his usual haunts, he's got an armload of books in no time at all.
But I don't take him if I don't want him.
But you've seen his book hauls. It's freakish, the things that he can find in the middle of nowhere in Vermont. You said once, you told me that that's probably because of Dartmouth.
I think so.
There's a huge academic and medical complex just a little ways from here. And those books make their way out into the bloodstream of the used bookstore circuit. If those people donate their books to charity, they're going to show up in a charity shop.
Right. Yeah.
But this time around,
no.
When I got back, I take Frida out to the verge of the shop so that she can do her dirty business before we go back inside. Although she would never go inside. I do it anyway, just so it's not bothering me. And ordinarily, I come back and he's got an armload of books. This time he didn't have any.
I won't touch them if I don't have enough room in the house to load it up with stuff I don't want.
And the worst thing is your suspicion. His suspicion is that the reason why is because they're gearing up to shift out the stock.
Yeah, you saw it with the way things were moved around. And
I don't know. I wouldn't recognize the pattern, but now I'm curious to know what they're going to get.
So if they put
get genuine.
I went out there once when they first opened the new shop, the one you go to, and they must have had 300 Star Trek novels. And I would buy 5 or 6 at a time. I like them, but I don't sit down and read Star Trek novels all day. And now I just kick myself. They were like 50 cents a piece.
There was a Star Wars novel at one of them today. One of you.
Oh, I saw that one.
Some of you are Star Wars fans, so you'll know the extended universe that Disney decided to cancel for the Star Wars movies. They're not paying any attention to the extended universe. This one was called The Courtship of Princess Leia.
Yeah, I've seen it. I think I have.
Very nice cover. Yeah. Very intriguing plot summary. I read the back.
That was mass market, right?
Yeah, it was mass market, but I don't know the extended universe well enough.
I got those 3 Aftermath ones out there if you want to read them.
You also got... Was it you or some other booktuber got a really nice 1 volume of the
prequel?
The Scholastic Juvenile writing.
Oh, I got that too. Somebody on Instagram told me that it was. I just grabbed it.
It's not the actual novels, or is it?
He said it. I forgot who was on Instagram. Told me no, it was a juvenile version by Scholastic. But
you'll know in a minute by looking at the very end of the very first Star Wars novel, because there's open sexual innuendo, and it won't be there if yours is.
I actually got a Star Wars stuff before the movie came out.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I got the novel and I got the first issue of the Marvel Comics edition. Yeah. The first issue of the Marvel Comics edition I got only because it had Howard Chaykin artwork. I didn't know anything about what Star Wars was.
We were watching for it because remember Starlog came out before? And a lot of that was really hyping it. So me and my friends were just nuts waiting for this
Starlog was an industry.
And we weren't disappointed.
Really
we weren't disappointed. We loved the first movie.
I didn't pay much attention to that sort of stuff. But then... So I heard...
none of us had dates, by the way. I'm just mentioning that as an aside.
We don't want to give Noah a heart attack by telling him that this was before the 1980s. You don't want to do that. But I paid no attention to Starlog's mention of this stuff. I didn't. For some reason, I didn't care about it at all. I was mainly just focused on Star Trek.
They had some great Star Trek coverage.
They did. They had some great Star Trek coverage. They were allowed on set. This was before the internet. Starlog was our internet. And friends of mine were telling me, no, there's this movie, you gotta go. So I went.
But it was a junior player on the scene.
It was in the middle of the summer, and there wasn't a single seat in the house. I had to sit in an aisle to watch this thing.
Yeah, I went to opening night in my town. I never forget it, but it was not the biggest movie I saw at that time for just sheer fan craziness. The craziest one I saw at that time was the night we went to the opening of Rocky.
Rocky.
Remember, you go out in the parking lot afterwards and everybody's out there just... It was weird.
I didn't see Rocky in the theater.
Oh my gosh, it was hilarious.
I was only interested in science fiction at the time.
Yeah, I think my friends told me, because I don't think I knew what Rocky was.
I only knew about that it was an impressive achievement on Stallone's part.
Oh, it was.
A one-man show. All of it that he did himself.
Yeah.
That's always impressive when you get something like that to happen.
That was a weird story how that movie came about.
Yeah.
That was a really weird story.
But I knew nothing at all about Star Wars, and I saw this huge capacity crowd, and I thought, what can this all be about? What can this all be about? And a friend that I went with said, I bet you more than half the people here are here for the second time, or more.
Right.
And I was sitting there in the aisle, and the movie got to the trash compactor scene, and I thought, okay, I get it. all right, I don't care how derivative this stuff is. This is incredibly fun to watch.
Yeah.
The trash compactor scene where they stop just at the last minute.
They had a big thing in Starlog about how Lucas used American Graffiti to fund.
Oh, no kidding. Did he really? So that was his dream project.
Well, Star Wars was his dream project. So
now that you think about it, now that you mention
makes a lot of
I'm
sense.
remembering all the original. Starlog used to have original artwork. For the
if you have the old Starlog magazines, or if you can find them, don't throw them away.
No, send them here instead.
Yeah, I'd love that. I had them for years.
I never missed an issue, but I never kept an issue either.
Yeah, I did. I kept them for a long time. But moves and stuff in life gets rid of that stuff.
I consumed every single inch of that magazine and every other magazine about Star Trek the Motion Picture. The idea of Star Trek reviving on the big screen with the original
Well, that
cast.
was sort of the driving force behind a lot of Starlog, wasn't it? The Star Trek
it was their
stuff.
bread and butter. More than Star Wars was. It was their bread and butter.
Right. Star Wars, they stumbled into just as much as everybody else did because they had Hollywood reporters.
Yeah.
I don't think they...
Whereas with Star Trek, they had a built-in fan base already.
Right. I don't think they knew how big Star Wars was going to be.
I never missed an update on Star Trek Motion Picture. And I was there on opening night in New York City. I didn't know what to make of the movie.
I don't think I knew 2 weeks after I watched it what to make.
No, I don't.
There was things I really liked.
Yes.
And there was stuff that I'm saying, why?
Yeah, what on earth is this? What on earth is this? It has one of the most perfectly elegant nerve pinches ever.
Yeah.
But it's also got 20 minutes of hippie, trippy
I think
visual
the problem
effects.
is you gotta play to people like us who grew up with Star Trek. But you also gotta remember you gotta have new people.
Yeah, you gotta have new people.
And I think they forgot part 2. Yeah, I think they.
Well, it was Roddenberry, right? It was
Roddenberry could be too much sometimes.
He wasn't gonna remember the second group.
Yeah, there's somebody in his office who was actually way better at all of it than he was, and we all know who she was.
Yeah. And then he hired Nicholas Meyer.
7% Solution.
Star Trek 2.
Remember 7% Solution?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a customer at the bookstore who wanted to know where that story was in his Arthur Conan Doyle collection. I had to say, that's not an Arthur Conan Doyle story. None of that was an Arthur Conan Doyle story.
What was the other one?
Believe me.
The Canaries. There was one Canaries too.
Yes, and also the West End
Horror. Yeah.
The West End
Meyer's a heck of a writer.
He's a very good writer. Yeah. He's a better movie director.
Oh my god!
Wish he had more work, but the West End Horror was, or the West End Terror, or whoever it was.
The West End Horror. You're right.
That was the quintessential Sherlock Holmes question. You've got Sherlock Holmes, the most famous detective in the history of private detectives, working at the same time in the same city as the most famous real-life serial killer, Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
What would that happen? What would happen there?
I know what would happen. You can ask Todd's bursting bookcase. Solar Ponds would come out and solve it. Remember Solar Ponds?
Yeah, you
Todd
do.
actually
And
pulled
I do.
those.
And Todd is now going like this.
Remember he pulled those out? We're all like, what the heck?
Nobody else on Booktube is Solar Pond. What? It used to be you couldn't
August
write about
Dearlith.
Sherlock Holmes.
August Dearlith, right?
Oh, God help us. In case you were wondering what evenings here at the farmhouse are like. But it used to be you couldn't write about Sherlock Holmes. You could make up a character called Solar Ponds.
I bet that someone at Vaughn Manor knows exactly who Solar Ponds is.
Who knows who lives at Vaughn Manor?
I know Lady Vaughn isn't a Vaughn now.
Lady Vaughn is not
There's some
Vaughn.
scandal here.
There is. There's a butler.
6 horses or tortoises.
They're either horses or tortoises. The
I have
audio,
hearing aids, see?
the audio went out. Well, no, I was listening too.
Oh,
I'm a
couldn't.
sexy 28-year-old, so I don't have a hearing aid.
He was a sexy 28-year-old in
First time I came here, I was one as well. But the audio clips a little on that video, so we don't know
if it's tortoises
whether
or
it's 6
horses.
tortoises or 6 horses. And you notice, it totally changes how you think of Vaughn Manor. Whether it's one or the other. It's
I
all the
see
same.
a lot of things when I watch a new Vaughn Manor type thing that make me wonder. The knife in the window is
I
a little
want to say
disturbing.
it's horses, but if it's tortoises, that nerds up the place.
Do they
far.
ride tortoises
Maybe
at
they do.
Vaughn
Maybe they do.
Manor? The unwed couple. Lady Vaughn was not happy with the hoarding, though, I guess. Or the Lady of the Manor.
The Lady of the Manor. She's not Lady
long.
Vaughn because they're taking things slow.
Yeah, 20 years slow. Yeah, that was a great video. He does such a good job. I love it when somebody really wants to entertain. And I also want to steal some books off his shelf. That 3-volume annotated Sherlock. I had the old Baron Gould. Remember those?
The Brattle Bookshop has a set of the Baron Gould right now.
And I love them, but that new set, new, 20 years old probably. Right?
That set is beautiful. That he has a box set.
Ooh, that's a 3-volume set. And who did that editing? I don't even remember. The annotation of that wasn't the guy Klinghoffer, whatever.
Wasn't it? It was like
wasn't it?
I thought it was.
Maybe it is. Because he does everything now, right?
He does everything now. Yeah, him and Otto Penzler. They do all the editing together.
Otto Penzler with the anthologies can't be beat. I mean,
his
remember
new one
the
is
library
Great
one?
Victorian Mysteries. That's the one that's coming out in
If
July.
anybody knows it, he does. Yeah, I follow his mysterious bookshop on Instagram, so sometimes you see some interesting stuff.
God, he has the best Instagram. My Instagram feed is not nearly as interesting as yours. Is that the price I pay for following only male models? They're not very interesting.
I don't follow any.
He doesn't have any. Instead, his Instagram is interesting. I'm thinking I need to poach a lot of his follows and maybe dispense with a lot of mine. There's only so much talk about creatine.
Well, you know, there's
take.
a couple people on Instagram that have libraries that just crush my personal home library. I think a Mupplewick. I mean, the entire Oxford English Dictionary. I'm not talking that thing with the magnifying glass. I'm talking the real thing.
Your personal library is not bad.
Felicity McCarthy.
You
Every
can-
once in a while you'll think, okay, that book has to be worth a fortune. And then she'll pull out a paperback science fiction novel and talk about it all day. I mean, these people are readers. So Instagram's fun.
The books here go on forever.
Yeah,
Don't let him talk it down. They go on forever. Every wall is full of books. Meticulously organized.
Whoa, look at them now, though. Look. This is what happens when you get a little tight on space. And all of a sudden you start having those... what did you used to call them when you did your book tours? You called them... Did you call them transverse books?
Yeah, transverse books. Yeah.
Yeah. Because so you were on...
It's a shame you're down one room.
I actually have 8 boxes of art books out in the breezeway because of this guy took.
There's
over
a
my
wall bookcase in what is now my room that he emptied, so that I would have an empty bookcase to fill.
I'm actually going to look at it and say, I don't have any art books. Can you help me out? No. The I think about where was I going? I'm lost.
Imagine how we could replenish if the 5 colleges book sale were going to happen. We did a
Problem
video about it. We'll have to link to that as well. We're going to link to like 20 videos. There was 5 colleges book sale.
The biggest book sale in Northern New England.
It did it at high school, an entire high school.
But it was in a school.
On the weekend.
And now that COVID has been around, schools have just
I'll
not
never
doing
forget. I
this
came
stuff.
up here.
You
The first
didn't
time I
believe
heard
me.
about it, I didn't believe it. He was saying, all right, here's how we're going to strategize. And we're not going to stay up talking about Star Trek until 3 a.m. the night before then because we got to be ready. We got to be on our game. And here's how we're going to strategize, room by room. And I confess,
I had
I'm willing to
maps.
eat crow. Yes, he had maps. And I took Frida to our room that night thinking, okay, well, this is just small town Vermont. This is going to be one stall that's just over-impressing the locals. And I was dead wrong.
It
was
biggest.
astonishing. Just astonishing. And the minute COVID started to blossom, I knew that would go. Because it was
But schools
in a
won't allow
school.
it. Yeah.
There's no way you could do it.
And remember when we got there, we're in this long line, so the lady reporter, somebody I know, so she's taking pictures of us. And then, hey, Steve!
Oh, that's right. That's right. There was
The Boston bookseller,
somebody I
wasn't it?
knew in line. I just walked over to him in line to say hi. I think for a minute you were worried I was just going to accost a stranger.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
And it was incredible. Oh my! And they're not going to do that. You're
It'll
sure
be
they're not going to do that this year?
They can't. How could you do anything in a
Find
school?
a new location?
Yeah, but I mean, it's an operation that takes absolutely a full year to get
You
in
should have
swing.
seen it. The dealers had literal trucks backed up to loading docks.
And they would get in your way. Actually, they got pretty tough with them the year we went, so they couldn't get in front of people like regular people.
Yeah, I think they were well controlled.
Yeah, but the year before they were horrible.
Really?
Yeah, they take their phones. They say they don't know anything about books.
No, and they don't care either.
No.
keep in mind, they don't care either. If they could get a better margin of a fraction of a penny on eBay with shoes, they would shift to shoes.
Yeah,
they didn't care at all. So
if
you see one of those creatures with the scanner scanning books, don't think you're seeing an uber dedicated book person. You're not.
No.
You're seeing a parasite. Someone that
they were horrible. And they actually, a lot of us said we weren't going to go anymore, and they ended up bouncing down on them.
Well, they should, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if their ordinary customers are telling them, cut this out or we'll stop coming, they have to do it. The dealers aren't going to keep their business.
No, they're just rude people. But it was great. We have one down here in Springfield, Vermont, that's really good. I'm hoping they do that because they're in an armory and they don't have the restrictions the school is at. Bean's okay. And then
the cat.
We're hoping to have
one of the cats has re-entered the room. The one she had her little tussle with has re-entered the room. The cats are very protective. They're very territorial. And she's not territorial, but she wants to be right where I am. In fact, it's a hardship to her that I'm not with her right now.
She's sound asleep.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah. So we'll have some book sales. They'll start coming back. I mean, I'm sure everybody on Booktube is thinking the same thing. They want their library book sales. And
oh, yeah. Library book sales.
College book sales and all that stuff.
They've got to come back.
Well, I'm worried about what kind of books ended up in the landfill.
In this time? In between?
Because I had people call me and say, "You're doing book sale?" I said, "No, and I can't." And then they're like, "Well, okay." And I'm sitting there thinking, "Where?"
Yeah, they're not going to look for alternatives. They're just
they're
say,
trying to empty out the house.
I've got a week to get rid of these.
Yeah, and
not
terrible.
everybody has the Brattle Bookshop. The Brattle
Bookshop couldn't take all that stuff. They'd be like, what?
They can be discriminating, but if you have a whole lifetime's collection, they'll probably take it.
They'll probably take it, but I mean, they still can process so much. Boston's a big doggone place now, and nobody's. So what is the Brattle doing? Nobody else is taking books.
Yeah.
They've got to be operating different than they did a year ago.
Yeah, but if it's a lifetime collection,
they know the difference.
That there'll be 2 or 3 things in there that will justify the work of all the rest.
Right, because I'll get 5 offers for the latest Clive Cussler. That's not, and I love Clive Cussler. I'm not dissing Clive Cussler. I'm just saying I'll get that kind of collection, and then 5 people will have that. The person that has a lifetime collection is a different person. But those are going to the landfill because I got
still his books, right? He has some
dead.
part in them.
He's dead.
He's long dead.
Is
it any relation of his?
What he did was different. What I thought was really interesting. So on each of his
series, coming out this summer.
Right, he took each series. The Remy, the archaeology couple, Isaac Bell, who I think is the best thing he's done since Dirk Pitt, the Cabreo. He has like 4 or 5 series, and before he died, he says that these are entertainment. He had no pretensions about being a great literary guy, and he says he took a different writer with each group.
Oh, no kidding! And just they're all continuing.
They all continue with that writer. So Grant Blackwood, remember him?
I do.
And Sarah Bursell, is that her name? Sarah. She does like the Remy, I think. She's wonderful. There's a couple of them who took over. He says, no, these series are for the fans. They're not. And that's not how it happened with like Robert Parker or Clancy. That was publishers doing it. See what I'm saying? So Tom Clancy, okay. Remember, like Greenie did, I think, as good as Clancy. I'm trying to be careful how I say this.
You have to be. I don't have to be.
Well, and the Gray Man's gone crazy, right?
He's so much.
Gray Man's going to be a stinking TV series or whatever. Right? So Clancy didn't have a say, and that's not Clancy's fault, but the publisher is the one who pushed those continuations.
Yeah, the best Tom Clancy novels you will read are not by Tom Clancy.
Was it Mark Cameron did some?
Cameron's a really good. Yeah. Mark Greene's are even better.
But I think Greene's probably the cream of the crop.
But I liked. Cussler was no literary genius, but I liked the Mediterranean Caper, and I loved.
Oh no, he wrote some good stories,
and
a lot of times when he would like start a series, especially strong. So like when he started Isaac Bell, which was more of a land-based, trying to look at technology at the early part of the 20th century. So not just railroads, but the early days of aviation stuff. That's where Clive Cussler was strong. So Isaac Bell is probably some of the best stuff he did, and he knew his limits. He's not silly. That's why he's so wealthy. Right? But the publisher is not the one, at least as far as I know, who makes that decision. In his case, he sees the lay of the land with the Clancys and even the Patterson. Let's face it, how much of those are? These are all big publishing money makers, right?
Do you think that's going to happen with Stephen King?
No, I think
He's getting on in years.
He's getting on years, but he's a different cat.
Well,
and a lot of his goes on with the dynasty of the family.
Dynasty to his own kids.
He's a different cat. So Patterson or Nora Roberts or somebody like these, they're as big a money makers, but it's a different game. I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I think the publishing game has more to say about this than we think sometimes. So I think Clive Cussler is targeting,
contract, right? If you sign away your own name, then you don't have it anymore. Your publisher can use it.
Yeah, you're not going to do that with Stephen King because his lawyers probably have their own building.
Well, yeah, and he switched publishers.
But plus, he's also, his problem isn't just print publishers. His problem is movie, and movie contracts are notoriously fickle creatures, right? I mean, you're dealing with a different world. You have a different kind of agent if you're dealing with the movie world.
I wouldn't know that firsthand.
But you know people who do. Yeah. No, I think that. Yeah, well, he'd have to be. Although Joe Hill, his son, is probably dealing with the same things. I wonder if he deals with the same.
Yeah, he has. It's Joe Hill and who's the other guy? His two sons.
Owen.
Right. Yeah, two sons who write. Took after and with Joe Hill was the one. I knew that one of his children was going to try this old wheeze in the publishing world. I knew that one of his children was going to say, "Oh no, I submitted my manuscript blind. No one knew who I was." I knew one of his children was going to try.
I think it was the right thing to do.
It didn't happen. There's no way that it happened.
No, but I think the way he publicized himself is the right way to go.
It is now.
There was a lot of people who didn't know
story
that
for a million years.
Yeah, but a lot of
tell me the
people.
lightning struck twice in one family? No way.
In some ways, he might be a better writer. I read Tabitha's book. So where I grew up was like 4 houses from Stephen King. I mean, I grew up right next door to him, and I saw a lot of him. And I was an early days guy. I loved Salem's Lot. Hated Carrie. I've always been back and forth with Stephen's book. I think he's a good guy. Tabitha's books I never really liked. Joe Hill, I think, reflects a generation change because he has a lot more involvement. Stephen King's had graphic novels, but I'm not sure Stephen King's a graphic novel guy.
Oh no, Joe Hill his books are very cinematic.
Yes, he's a different cat.
His books could not exist without movies.
Right.
And the early Stephen King books very much can. They made movies instead of movies making them.
And sometimes they shouldn't have.
And sometimes they shouldn't have. Right. Although I really liked the TV miniseries of Salem's Lot. I thought that was terrific.
I thought when I read Salem's Lot that if you're a New England kid, you grew up in New England, that was your real world to you. I'm not saying that you thought you had a man. Well, you did if you read the damn book at home. But you know what I mean? I think he captured something there because it was really all he knew, right? What else is he going to do? It was real. It's 1970s New England, right? It really is. And then, I don't know, what is it? Michael Soule plays
Michael Soule played the main character?
I don't know. The professor, the older teacher. Who was the older teacher? That actor was like a second.
Oh, right, yes.
He was actually pretty good.
All I can think of is...
and who was the kid? That kid was around for
Lance Kerwin was the kid. But the older advisor to David Soule, who was on the first season of St. Elsewhere, it was terrific.
Oh,
I want to say David Morse, but it's not David Morse. David Morse was another actor. I remember him. Elsewhere. I don't remember who the actor's name was, but of course the thing that sold it for me was James Mason as the bad guys.
Remember the Gravediggers?
Yeah, that was an awesome moment. But the thing that always bothers me about Dracula is that Renfield, as Dracula's emissary, is so nuts that he's actually institutionalized. We see him in an institution. That isn't. If you were Dracula, that's not what you would do. If you were Dracula, James Mason in a tailored suit from London would be your frontman. It wouldn't be some lunatic eating bugs. It would be James Mason saying, "Oh, do make sure my suit is."
So I always wonder why Stephen King's most popular nonfiction book is his book on writing, when I thought Dance Macabre was a much better book.
It wouldn't take much to be better than his book on writing, but Dance Macabre is really good.
It's really, really personal.
And really insightful.
And it's wonderful. This is somebody who loved and found a lifeline. Let's not face it. Let's not forget that Stephen King has a reason he's Stephen King, and it's not all pretty.
No, most of it isn't.
And I think Dance Macabre shows that lifeline. You know, when you talk about him with reading fantasy and science fiction and all the other stuff he read growing up, there's a reason he took that path, and he knew that literature, and you know, he'd be the first to tell you that. Oh, remember, what was it? Where did he do that big thing about how he couldn't sleep in a hotel room? Where was that?
Where was that? Oh, man.
That's not the person you want to be.
No.
You may think, I want to be a writer, I want to be famous, I want to make a lot of money by Stephen King. You wouldn't be willing to pay the price.
You want to learn from that person, but you don't want to.
You don't want to be that person. No.
It's just his book on writing that bugs me, because there are so many better books on that subject. If you want a book on how to be a great writer, you could go to great writers. Eudora Welty is a great writer. Edith Wharton is a great writer. Even John Gardner, even though he's completely forgotten, wrote 2 books on how to write that are better. And these things are available. It's not like they're, you know.
Did you read it? Yo, did you read? I'm not allowed to ask him that, because I know the books you haven't. That's why I don't do that.
He doesn't do the has Steve read it.
Because you tell me what you did.
That's why I was kind of surprised. It's not actually an enigma to me that Jason Harrigan hasn't jumped in either.
No, he knows, because you've talked to him.
He'd probably be able to figure it out.
Yeah. Remember on Moral Fiction?
Yeah. Terrific. That was terrific.
I think Old Blues actually mentioned that once too. He likes that, right? Jason.
Does he like John Gardner?
I think he likes that book. If I'm wrong, sorry, I apologize. For some reason, it's in the back of my head. I think I was reading it
certainly
once.
His kind of book.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's got multiple layers. It's got multiple moving parts.
Grendel was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the books
what was it?
October Light. All the books that I love by him are not in print anymore. Grendel will be in print forever, but all of his bigger books, October Light or The King's Indian, is a great collection. Just fantastic. And
where did he teach? Was it upstate New York? I'm wrong about that.
I'm drawing a blank. Wrong. I wouldn't draw. I've drawn a blank earlier in the evening, but I'm drawing a blank. Ugh.
I can't remember.
Oh, where did he teach? Oh, this is going to drive me nuts. Well, but we have.
He died in a motorcycle crash, right?
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was not adequately protected.
Well, that was the thing then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's as soon as you've signed your insurance papers, that's what I'll be urging you to do.
You can't do it here. You have to wear a helmet here, but if you go across the river, they drive around without a helmet.
Notice how even the jokes bring out the city council supervisor.
Yeah. I'm just trying to make clear. We keep an eye on this guy.
You should have seen the book Thrift Drive today. Let's talk more about science. Hey, pal, your light's not working. We'd switch immediately from the inveterate book nerd to hey, pal, you can't see that sign.
I talk when I drive. And I criticize, I guess.
But we have a solemn assurance from Mark's dad that she will make us look good by editing this video. I don't know how that's going to happen. If it's possible, we'll just have to see. We'll wrap it up. Yeah. And we'll see if she can do that. But we have adventures tomorrow. You have work.
No, just a couple hours. Let's get going. And
I have work as well.
That's not work.
There's far too much of a tendency in this household to put air quotes around when I say the word work. I do have to do stuff, but I don't have to wear pants to do it.
Yes, you do. You do. Is required.
But who knows? There may be more book hauls.
Oh, I thought you were going, who knows about pants?
Now there's a rule. We practically have it carved on the lintel piece.
Yeah. It is now. Yeah. So, no, we'll do more of this. Maybe we'll
or maybe they do know what they're missing.
Not going to say anything about Irish, but we'll get a few folks involved here. I had talked to a couple people about doing some live streams a couple months ago, and I apologize to a couple of you. But we do seem, I don't know if it's Wi-Fi or the computer.
Look,
the voice goes out.
From your sound of it, you wouldn't have had a chance to do it anyway recently.
No, but that happens. And from their side, maybe the same thing would happen. But it seems to be some sort of sound thing. We can do it like combined here, but when I do it live stream,
as it picks up me,
it does.
I'm a sexy influencer.
You are.
As long as it picks up me, that's fine. But anyway, we're going to
If any of you are taking in guests...
You're not taking it. I'm staying here. The Bean and I are staying here.
God.
Good night, Booktube. We'll see you next time.
Pray for me.